only certain people from Boston are going to understand what I'm about to say. Yan, tan, tether, feather, pether, leather, sether, ovula, covula, deek. For everybody else, what does that mean? Well, you're going to have to listen to today's episode of Life's Potluck Buffet to find out. I'm John Paulus. Thanks for joining me today. Okay, first of all, you thought I meant Boston, Massachusetts. But I was talking about people from the old Boston that Boston, Massachusetts is named after, Boston in Lincolnshire. Lincolnshire. Okay. You don't know how many takes it took to record the little bit in the beginning. I'll get to that in a second. But there's no way I'm ever going to try to do a Boston in Lincolnshire accent or any regional accent of England, Scotland, Wales. And I think that's for the best. I have to say, I'd love to know from anybody from any of those places if there is an actor who's not from any place in those places that does a good accent for specific regions and areas in Great Britain. I'd love to know because, I can't tell. This is a little bit of a hobby of mine, is to listen really closely. I should have been an accent coach. Okay, this is like one accent I could coach. I listen really closely to shows produced in the United Kingdom and in the United States when somebody is doing an accent from either side of the pond, as they say, that is not their accent. And I listen to see how well they're doing. And I can't tell if it's someone doing an accent on the other, in somewhere in the, say, United Kingdom, or somewhere in Ireland, or somewhere on those isles there. I can't obviously tell how well they're doing. I have to ask somebody from those places to be like, does that person sound like they should sound? But for folks doing accents that I'm familiar with, or in the U.S., I can tell, right? Obviously. For me, there's a clear kind of winner in this little competition that I have for myself, that I'll share with you, and that's Damian Lewis. Damian Lewis, especially in that show Billions. Damian Lewis doesn't slip. That's how I test these things. If you slip, you can hear it when someone slips. When I hear Damian Lewis, I just think, oh, that's a guy from Queens. That's what it strikes me as. Like, oh yeah, if Damian Lewis said, I grew up in Queens. Yeah, I'd be like, yeah, I believe you. Yeah, that's what I thought. It's funny. I saw a comment on a YouTube video by somebody who was saying, when I hear Damian Lewis speak in his normal accent, I think that sounds fake to me. And I totally get that. I was listening to some videos of Damian Lewis speaking in his very British, very, very accent. And, it sounds like he's doing an impression of somebody. It's funny. But that's how good he is. Hugh Laurie, also just excellent. Doesn't slip up. But let me get to the point of this episode. At the beginning of the episode, I counted to 10 in an ancient way of counting, specifically sheep counting for shepherds in Lincolnshire. Lincolnshire. Okay, I'm not gonna try. The Lincoln. So that's where Boston is located. So the old Boston, the original Boston. That's a whole different story. So if you're from the Boston in Lincolnshire, then that's terrible. Why am I trying to keep on saying it right? I can't. It's hard to say because I don't know. As an American looking at it, I wanted to say Lincolnshire, and maybe that's how people in Lincolnshire say it, but who knows? But I understand. I've listened to way too many videos researching this to of people either speaking the received pronunciation, the BBC very proper, quote unquote, proper pronunciation, and people speaking in Lincolnshire dialects to say that I can even get close to pronouncing it the way you ought to pronounce it. So forgive me. Now, yan is 1, tan is 2, tethra is 3, and so forth. The others I didn't pronounce great, I don't think. I listened to a video of Farmer Wink, who's a very famous Lincolnshire person, and I thought that I was going to really nail this, and I didn't come close because there's a the sound, I can't do it, that he uses in some of those like feather that I can't really reproduce it. I think feather is 4. Maybe. Anyway, so those are the number. They come from a Celtic language, and these are languages that really predate any introduction of languages coming from the continent to the area. So they're really old ways of counting. So that's really cool. They also in exploring this idea of counting, I looked a lot into counting rhymes, children's counting rhymes, where you count out a person or count in, how you do. So one example of that was Hickory Dickory Dock. And Hickory Dickory Dock, there's a group of people who think that that's an imitation of the end of 8, 9, and 10, which it's certainly not the Lincolnshire version, but some other version of that from an old Celtic language. Maybe, but it's a little bit of a stretch. I actually read a treatise from the 19th century. Oh yeah, I took a deep dive on this one. That actually thinks that things like Hickory Dickory Dock are actually from Romany language, the language of the Anglo-Romani, who have their counting system. So some groups have their counting system from languages of South Asia. And those, so for example, Eka and Ekari, there's some counting rhymes or nursery rhymes coming from the Romani, the Roma, in Britain, that in the 19th century that started with something like Ekari, Ikari, etc. And so the person thought that who wrote this treatise thought that that's where the hickory was coming from in Hickory Dickory Dock. But then I saw a volume on nursery rhymes that actually preserved it as Dickory Dickory Dock. And then I realized, maybe it's actually supposed to be the sound like of a clock ticking and then chiming or donging, right? Dickory Dickory Dock. The mouse went up the clock. Right, so maybe it's actually trying to imitate the ticking of a clock rather than the counting, because I don't know what 8, 9, 10. I mean, 1, 2, 3 would make a better sense. Even though Dock is not 3 in any of the South Asian languages that are related to the Romani language, but I don't know what 8, 9, 10 would matter for a counting game that had to do with clocks, because it shouldn't be 10, 11, 12. And I didn't see any 10, 11, 12 as Hickory Dickory Dock or anything that sounded like that. So, right, because the clock strikes 1. So when you say 10, 11, 12, then the mouse ran up the clock struck 1, right? That makes more sense. So 8, 9, 10, I don't know what, clocks are based 12, right? So I wouldn't that make better sense? Anyway, I like my novel theory that it's actually Dickory Dickory Dock, and that is actually the original, and that it has to do with the ticking of the clock. So I'm gonna stick with that one, but who knows? All right, so let's ask the cards for today. What counts for us as we think about work and life? And so I'm going to draw a card from the Life's Potluck Buffet deck, and I'm going to say the ritual saying that I say, which is yellow lemons, blue dumplings, magenta noodles. Cards, tell us some things. All right. Here we go. Here's the card for the day. Oh, I'm trying to get it at it. I always take the one that either appears in a gap or sticks out. Here it is. Oh, it's card 15. Speak where you want to be, and the way will appear. When it occurs to you to say to yourself, I want to be X, say it to yourself and no one else, then operate as if it were already true, and be ready to say to others that it is true. Give it a shot, and I'll see you tomorrow on Life's Potluck Buffet. Oh, by the way, if you need to count to 15 sheep, it's Boomfit is 15 in the Lincolnshire sheep counting Celtic numbers.